What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit a million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
Good morning. Welcome to another edition of the Northland Sports Page. It's Brian Prudhomme. It is a dancing Dave Cook, and it is Saturday. Good morning, everybody. We'll be here with you until it's not morning anymore. That means we're here until noon. Hi, Dave. How are you, buddy?
I'm okay.
We haven't seen or talked to each other all week. This is going to be weird.
Yeah, right. And well, it's not going to get a ton better until probably Wednesday next week because we're having the surgery on Monday. But I'll tell you what, one of the hardest things to do is get ready for about a 2-month time off from work because, one, you want to get everything straight, right?
Right.
Two, you know you're going to look at 2 months worth of work when you get back. And it's like, how can I get stuff done now?
Yeah, you have been incredibly busy because
in December.
You are the planner of the show versus me. And what I mean is I plan the show, but you plan what you're going to say on the show.
Yeah.
I don't. This is a lot of
welcome to this morning.
Shoot from the hip for me, where we didn't even, not only do we not see each other this week, we didn't even talk about the show this week.
No, it's crazy. This has been one of the craziest weeks ever because it's been wide open from Monday at 8 a.m. to yesterday at 5, and I just haven't sat down.
Right, and I've just mixed and matched, working the day job, working games, working in some way, shape, or form to put a show together. I think I'll let you critique it at noon and go, you know what? We didn't talk about it, but that wasn't half bad.
That wasn't half bad. I'll do it now because I know that when you set it up, it's not half bad. It's my job to get it past half.
There you go. See if you can push us over the positive edge, if you will.
People say it's not half bad. It'll be like, well, I should just go someplace else then.
Well, that's a half empty, half full theory.
There are people now that are like, yes, you go.
All right. So whatever he just said, I'm going to go with this. We do have a good lineup today, and it's one of those shows where Dave Cook finds out about it at the same time the listeners do because we didn't get a chance to talk in front of it. But 10:30 today, Dave Hoops. That's not a shocker.
Yep.
10:45-ish, we will play buy or sell today. 11:05 PA. Not a shock, and that's a good thing.
Nope, I didn't know about it. So this morning I was like, oh, that's fantastic. PA.
All right. And then this is a bit of a shock to the system because Vince Glenn is moving up in time slot. He's going to get a little more time today, going to go a little bit early.
Excellent. It'd be good to talk to Vince coming out of a bye week, see what they think. I want to ask him about the injuries. Like, how do you get more injured during the bye week?
That was kind of alarming. The first injury report that the Vikings put out after the bye week was longer than any injury report we'd seen this season.
Yep.
And I didn't know if there was just more to disclose once they got back from London, or if it was, what did we do during the bye week? What kind of team trip should we not take anymore?
100% right. You know, and the guys that are coming back really shouldn't play, but the guys that were playing really should, and some of them aren't.
So what we'll have as well, in addition to PA and Vince Glenn going back-to-back, is the fun of listening to that back-to-back for this reason. With PA, you know you're going to get a little bit of purple Kool-Aid. He works for the team. He is a purveyor of positivity. He says that himself. I enjoy that. We get Vency right after that, and Vency roots for the Vikings as a former Viking, but he does it with a giant dose of purple reality, and I want to see what that sounds like, too.
Kind of fun, because the purple Kool-Aid, have you ever just donned dishwashing soap on water that just has a little bit of oil on it, and you squirt it, just goes, well, there's where the purple Kool-Aid's going to go when Vency hits it, because Vency's going to be like, you know, guys, that's fun and everything. That's not what the game's about, and then we're going to get focused on that.
I was going to say, we're going to get fan ball and football, and I like both.
Oh, I like that.
PA loves the fan ball, Vency loves the football, so we're going to have a little bit of both.
That's a headline for our second.
Absolutely.
Put that on when you put in the thing for the podcast.
So descriptive.
That needs to be the headline for hour 2.
Yes, and then the end of hour 2, which will also be the final segment of the show, we're going to go from football to football, because we talk a lot about Northland High School football teams for good reason. But football, a.k.a. soccer, The Northland is a mecca. There are a bunch of state participants. We're going to talk to Duluth East. The girls made it to the state tournament.
Well, and not just state participants, right? But state threats. And it's been that way for a while, but my understanding is that East team's got a shot.
East is good. Cloquet times 2, the boys and the girls. Marshall's got a team there. Esco's got a team there. Soccer in this area is so much better than I think people realize.
Which is weird because football doesn't have any kickers, except in Hermantown.
Except for back when they used to use them. We talked about that during the East Section Championship. I was with the former East boys coach in the press box, and I said, what happened to soccer players being kickers? And he said, too many people thought we were crazy to have starting players that are important to us playing football. I get it, but I don't, because I wish that there was more of a kicking game in Duluth.
Well, and okay.
But here we are morphing soccer into football. Let's not do that because the soccer's been impressive.
I want 1 second.
All right. Time's up.
You could get a JV soccer player to do what some of the kickers do. Like, you wouldn't need your number one. You just get a kid that doesn't really play all that much but can still kick.
Well, here's the thing. We know that we hear from football coaches who listen to this show. So I'm wondering if any soccer coaches, because I teased that Duluth East girls would close the show, if any soccer coaches tuned in early, maybe they'll enlighten us as to why that doesn't happen. Maybe it's a simple fact that the soccer coaches don't want it to happen.
Yeah, because the football coaches can't be mad at what I said because they've seen it too.
Right. And the one football coach that we know listens to us the most, Mike Zagelmeyer, he's not worried because he's got a kicking game.
That's because his kicker the soccer coach might say, Mike, we need your kicker. The opposite of what we're talking about with everybody else.
No question about it. So high school football, just because we somehow got there off the high school soccer topic, real quick, there will be playoff football on these airwaves come Tuesday night. It'll be Cloquet at Duluth-Denfeld. The winner gets a trip to see Mike Zagelmeyer in Hermantown. That'll be a Saturday night semifinal game. The community is looking for a Denfeld-Hermantown rematch. The folks at Cloquet are going to say, wait a minute, we like to get in the way of that idea.
Yeah, and the way Denfeld's kind of struggled down the towards the end of the season here, Cloquet's got to be, their eyes have got to be bright that it's time to go get them.
So it'll be very interesting. We'll talk a lot about that as it gets a little bit closer. Next Saturday will be very interesting. We'll have probably a pair of coaches on because somebody in our community will be matching up with Mike Zagelmeyer, and Mike's no stranger to the show. Eric Lofald's no stranger to the show. Jeff Ogenin, if he wins, he's the Cloquet head coach. Buddy of mine who's been on the show as well.
Yeah, 100%. What does PA say? Friends of the show. And we've seen Zag's team.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody wants to play him. Nobody. And so if Denfeld gets there, they're going to take a deep breath. If Cloquet gets there, they know what they're in for. I want to see Hermantown get North Branch again. That's what I want to see.
If that happens, that would be the top 2 seeds in the section, but that's getting way ahead of ourselves because that would be on Friday, November 1st.
Where? I have a question about that.
That is being played at the Artist formerly known as PSS, as Eric Lofald and I now call the Walt.
Good. That's means you and I will probably be there.
Absolutely. Prayers for your knee in terms of that happening, because this isn't our final show, we hope, by a long shot, unless everybody hates the first 9 minutes here, but it is the last show with your original knees, because Monday's a big day for you.
Yeah. We're going to have the knee surgery. And that, somebody asked the other day, he goes, there's that Greek thing about the boat where, if you lose pieces of the boat and you get them repaired, at what point isn't the original boat? It's all the repaired pieces.
This is where we haven't talked much about the show today, because there have been multiple times in these first 9 minutes where I've gone, what in the world are you talking about? But continue.
Well, that's because how many body parts do you have to have replaced before you're not the one that...
When are you bionic?
Yes, the one that came out the womb. When are you not that anymore? And so I think a whole new knee is going to be moving that. Oh, I didn't tell you what I told somebody. He said, so how are they going to do this, Dave? I said, well, they cut it off. And then they re-sew it on with a metal knee. And they were like, really? Where did they learn to do that? I said, Civil War.
Oh, nice. I thought you were going to say, I used to be an offensive lineman and I played a little hockey. They're calling in Dr. James Andrews.
Yeah. Nope. Where did they learn it? Civil War.
Fair enough.
Yep. Big bone saw, the whole works. Yeah. So we're getting a new leg.
Everybody loves the Eras tour. You're in a different era surgically come Monday.
I'm in a different era, man.
Obviously hoping for the best for you. The medical professionals will coach you through everything.
Yep.
I will coach you through the show today. We get coached through the show, helped through the show with great sponsors every week.
Absolutely. Let's start with the Blackwoods Group. Their locations on London Road, Tavern on the Hill, Two Harbors, and the location in Proctor. Ferguson Bath and Kitchen, Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Krause Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer. Assisted Living Locators, you can reach them at www.assistedlivinglocators.org/Duluth. Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance. Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing, Comfort Systems of Duluth. Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, ABS Auto Solutions, Hoops Brewing, Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai. Kohler Toyota just spent some time with Dana's new car.
I was going to say, you picked me up in a new machine this weekend.
Yeah, they did a really nice once-over on the whole thing, Brian. Yes. And we got a full report on the email on what they discovered, what they didn't discover. It was... Dana went in and she said that was as nice a experience as she's had with a mechanic in a long time. And so hat tip to Kohler, because not only did they take care of the car, they took care of Dana, which I thought was awesome. And of course, Arola Architecture Studio, the OG.
That is the OG. I do want to add one thing to Mount Royal Bottle Shop. Visit their website, mountroyalbottleshop.org, and enter the online code RADIO. And to be fair, you can go into the store and also mention that as well, but they're really trying to plug the convenience of the online shopping. So again, it's mountroyalbottleshop.org. Enter the online code RADIO. It is Saturday, and with conjunction with us being sponsored by Hoops Brewing and Mount Royal Bottle Shop, you get 10% off your Hoops products. If you don't know which Hoops product is right for you, wait about 15 minutes because Dave Hoops will be along to coach you through that too.
Yeah, plus Mount Royal has their opinions as well. You know, if you don't know, ask.
All right, so you may have noticed that in the last minute or so, I've used the word coach quite a bit as a verb. It's also a title. It's very important to the world of sports. Talking about the world of sports in Minnesota, hat tip to, I think, the best coach in Minnesota. Cheryl Reeve may have been out coached earlier in the week on Wednesday when the Lynx blew a big lead. She got the job done again last night. Sunday is going to be an outstanding Game 5. When we talk about coaches in Minnesota, we tend to talk about Cheryl the least because we tend to go, she's great, end of discussion. Yep. But today in the opening topic, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about coaches. And it's funny to me because I've come up with opening topics in weird spots before. The shower, work, walks, what have you. This one, I can thank Steve Potosha again, because if you ever needed more evidence that we share a brain, it's just happened too many times. But we talked about the vital nature of this week's Vikings game. And Steve said to me right away, I love Dan Campbell. I just wish he wasn't in our division. And I said, I really can't stand Dan Campbell, but I think it's because he's in our division. So Steve was basically saying if this guy wasn't in our division, I'd want him. And I get that. But I took it and ran with it, the only kind of running that I do. And I thought, it might be a fun opening topic to say, we love our coaches, but if they weren't available or they retired or resigned or got dismissed, who in the current coaching crop would you want?
Well, can I just say I'm going to speak for Packer fans here and for Vikings fans. I don't think we have the heart, and I don't mean like the belief. I mean the actual strength of the organ to have Campbell as our head coach. Because him and his fourth down.
Right.
And
to me, it's playing Madden. I can't stand it. But at the same time, I don't know if it's like A.J. Brzezinski, where if it's on your team, you love it. And if it's against you, you don't.
Can you imagine Packer fans with a 4th and 1 at their own 15 and having your head coach go for it and not get it? Like, you're going to hear the ghosts of Vince Lombardi.
Well, can you imagine our fan base and say, we're snake bitten enough, we don't need your help?
We're going to talk about Bob Schnelker. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff.
You're worried about Packer fans? I'd be worried about our fans because we have enough struggles. We don't need Dan Campbell doing Dan Campbell things with us. Both. All right, so what we're going to pretend in our little fantasy land today is that our current coaches, the Rocco Baldellis, the Chris Finch, the John Hines, who is the reincarnation of Jack Adams, according to Topher Davis and myself, and then, of course, Kevin O'Connell, we're going to say that they suddenly aren't available. But you need to choose from current coaches in respective leagues which one you'd want in Minnesota. And then because we always do this on the Northland Sports page and take a historical angle, we'll take just a minute to say, historically, I would have wanted this coach to coach us. And we've got 15 minutes to roll with it. So be my Will Steger and let's go.
All right. So MLB is going to be the most fun. So let's finish with that one.
All right. So we're going to do that one last. So Rocco gets to hold on to a job for at least the next 13 minutes.
Right. The hardest one for me is the NHL. So let's start there because my answer is simple, but I couldn't come up with anybody else that legally can coach in the NHL. And my pick is Andrew Burnett. I mean, and it's picked for another.
Well, and it just fits. It's the hashtag one of us, not the Minnesotan part, but the Minnesota Wild would fit this perfectly.
Yes, but his offensive schemes are very good.
Yeah.
Like he's an offensive coach and a team that, right now our defensive core, is Faber and Brodin and take a deep breath, right? So you're going to need your front 9 to go nuts, and that's what they need. They need their forwards to have, a pure offensive plan and kind of damn the torpedoes full speed ahead, right?
It would be interesting. I did it a little more simplistically. I went with a guy who's been rumored to be in the Wild's wish list before, and I just said, well, let's pretend that wish comes true. And I just picked Peter Laviolette because success has followed him. Turmoil has followed him a little bit too. And I think the Wild need that because coaches have had that a little bit as well. He's had success in the bigger East Coast markets. Could bring that here. I would have had fun with Peter Laviolette. The interesting part was when we talked historical, you and I both went down the same road for two guys who didn't talk about this show yet. I had him picked out, and you and I played kind of password the way we do. You said, who was the guy with the Blackhawks back in the 80s and 90s? And I said, Mike Keenan.
Yeah.
And I said, because right away, that's who I came up with too. Because I couldn't stand him, but I couldn't stand him when I was a kid because as a North Stars fan, he won with the Blackhawks.
Constantly. But the guy that beat him earlier in his career is the one that I picked. You know, one of my favorite coaches in Vikings history is Jerry Burns.
Of course.
Well, I picked Jerry Burns in the professional world, and that's Glenn Sonmore. Like, I would have loved to bring Glenn Sonmore from the WHA and bring that offensive and craziness with him to the NHL. And on this current team, a little bit of crazy wouldn't hurt.
How about speaking of crazy, because I think this is the perfect crazy example, and I think it'd be too crazy for Minnesota to even try it. But what about Torts, John Tortorella?
I just think that he would nuke the thing. I'm not a fan.
But I think it would be interesting. I'm not either. But I think it would be interesting because Minnesota, well, that's a different kind of issue altogether.
Well, then we could say
this show just got weird. But yeah, it would get a little crazy. But I just think he's so blunt and forthright with his opinion that Minnesota, that coddles their professional hockey team regardless, it would just be an interesting poor fit.
Speaking of Dawn dishwashing liquid and greasy water, that's exactly what that would be.
That would be very interesting. So hockey, that's the way that we went. That quickly got us through one sport. One other one I wanted to throw in there because when I watched him as an analyst during the NCAA tournament and the plethora of Minnesota schools that participate, this guy tends to take a fawning over Minnesota school du jour. Barry Melrose would have just been interesting here.
I think 10 years ago, you're right. I think Barry Melrose would have gotten eyes on the Wild anyway. So
right.
I agree with you.
And if you're listening to the radio and you're screaming, that wouldn't have fit scheme, that wouldn't have fit personnel, guess what? When it comes to this category, I didn't take that into account. I went with my own personal fun of this is the guy that I would have liked heading up my own team.
Yeah, and I went for let's get some fun Paul Westhead stuff that we're going to talk about.
Paul Westphal would have worked too. Both of the Pauls would have worked. Are we going to the NBA next?
I think so. I think that's where we
did you bring Mike D'Antoni to Minnesota so we could just play offense?
So it is D'Antoni, Westhead, and Auerbach.
I guessed, and Mike D'Antoni was on your list?
Yep, because I love that kind of basketball, Brian. I love the 7-second game, and I loved Westhead's team in college, and it's not doable. I mean, don't call and say.
So you want Loyola Marymount to be at the Target Center, basically.
Yeah, don't say, Dave, that'll never work in the NBA. I get that, but boy, it sure would be fun.
So I went with two guys that with their NCAA resumes, and granted they have NBA resumes too, but I had kind of man crushes on them. And they didn't epically fail or are not epically failing at the NBA level. And so they're not the Rick Pitino type. They got the pro job and you went, oh, what are they doing? I look at somebody like a Quinn Snyder, and I always thought that was a good Minnesota fit.
I agree.
And then I've always had a bit of a man crush on Billy Donovan. And Topher Davis.
That's an excellent one.
Topher Davis might turn his radio off right now because my man crush on Billy Donovan started when he was coaching the Gators. And Topher Davis is the biggest Florida State fan in sport du jour that I know. Sorry about your football team who lost again last night. But Billy Donovan was a definite choice for me among current coaches that I would move over here. No idea how it would mesh with the current roster. But when the Timberwolves were going to have an opening, and there's been a lot over the franchise history, hey, we're looking for a coach again. Might not be an opening now for a long time because they've got a great coach. And keep this in mind, we're not looking to replace really any of the coaches that we have right now.
Fell off for some reason.
But if he decided, you know what, I'm done with this, I'm going after Billy Donovan, and I'm doing it right away.
You know, I forgot one guy who would have been really good from the college ranks when you brought that up. With this current team, Shark would have been great. Tarkanian would have been great with this group, just sitting on the sidelines, letting them do their thing, chewing on a towel.
Well, that's the fun historical take because that's a huge name in the sport itself.
Yep.
So when I went historically, I really went off the beaten path because I said, you know what? I'm going to bring Pat Riley to Minnesota because there's nothing about Pat Riley that fits
in
Minnesota lifestyle, Minnesota sports, Minnesota basketball. You pick. It just doesn't fit because he's glitz, he's glamour, he's fashion, he's style, he's trendy. We're none of that.
Right.
When you think of big names that have been associated with basketball in Minnesota on the men's side, I can think of two. One is Alex Rodriguez in this current ownership squabble, and he may be gone by the day after Election Day if it stays with Glenn Taylor. The other one, truthfully to me, big name in men's basketball to be in Minnesota, was when the U got Tubby Smith. I was shocked that they got somebody of that magnitude, but then the Gopher program still stunk.
Well, and that's he's kind of the flip side of Mussey, right? Where he was the Gopher guy and then came to the Timberwolves.
Right.
And kind of stunk. I mean, he's kind of started the whole, well, we're going to be good enough just to be good enough and bad enough just to be bad enough to miss the playoffs, but we'll draft 9th.
Well, and I think what I'm glad we both didn't do, although you did mention Red Auerbach, and as a Celtics fan, thank you very much, although I took a lot of heat from very good friends this week for being a Celtics fan. Sorry, I guess. I don't know that can affect our friendship, but successfully made me feel bad about that. But when you mentioned Red Auerbach, that's kind of the first legendary name besides Pat Riley that we brought up, because I'm glad that with this topic so far, we haven't gone with, well, I want this guy because he won 20 championships. I want this guy because they're in the finals every year. I think we know that once they come to Minnesota, that's not necessarily happening. We're just wondering if it would be enjoyable to have said coach.
I don't think Phil fits here.
No. And I wondered if, Phil Jackson would be a choice, or Pat Riley would probably be the next one. Eric Spoelstra gets to the finals every other minute. Popovich wouldn't fit here.
Pop wouldn't fit here. Phil wouldn't fit here.
But again, we said just a moment ago, we didn't always factor it fit.
Well, that's true as well. All right, so let's jump to the NFL, because the NFL's got some great names as well. I think currently, it's like 3 guys, right? You want Kyle.
Yep. He was my first one.
You want the 2 Seans, McVay and McDermott, and then
I want McVay way over McDermott, though.
Sure, but they both win. The one that the man crush for me is Mike Tomlin. Always has been. Couldn't understand when we let him leave. That would be my guy.
See, and I think it's one that 5 years ago I completely agree. And the more it goes on, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to call him overrated, but has that run its course? Because it seems like we marvel over the fact that he's always going to win 9 games. They're not going to have a losing season. Okay, he's going to win 9 games. Wake me up when he wins 12. It's always 9.
He's one of the coaches guy. He's a player guy, though.
Well, and what in the world? Okay, so he's a player's coach. What in the world is he doing this week? Your team has had some success with Justin Fields, and you're going to put Mr. Unlimited automatically in the mix. I don't like that move at all.
Well, if you want a passing attack, I don't like it either, by the way. But if you want any kind or any hope of a 290-yard passing game, because your running backs right now stink, and you have one wide receiver and a really good tight end, Brian, but nice job on the choice in the fantasy league, by the way.
You like my Pat Fryer move?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it's him.
Some
and
guy
Pickens.
told me they were going to be excellent this year.
It's him and Pickens. And so if you've got Pickens and he's that kind of wide receiver, you only got one quarterback who can make him a star. The other one is still trying to figure out. Although I tell you this, I think if I could afford it and he's not going to break the bank, I think I'd sign Fields for a couple years, because I think he is getting better.
So I picked 2 coaches. If KOC is suddenly out of the coaching profession, I picked 2 for the Vikes. You covered one. I want Kyle Shanahan. I want him for a number of reasons. Offensive genius. If you want to talk fit, he's had Sam Darnold before. I think that's why we thought Sam Darnold might be okay, because of what Kyle Shanahan got out of him. And then I went to the other side because we're all in love with our defensive coordinator, who basically should be a head coach with B-Flow. So I went with, okay, what's the head coaching version of that currently? If you would have told me the 2 coaches I picked will be in the Super Bowl this year, I'd say I could see that, because I went with Coach Ryans in Houston and Coach Shanahan in San Francisco.
My coach in the AFC, Brian, I don't know if you know that, he's unemployed.
Robert Saleh?
Yeah, remember?
I really liked him as well.
I picked the Jets to go, and I'm wrong.
So who's the historical coach they would have taken? Because the history of coaching success stories in the NFL goes back a long way.
It does, and I think I'm going to surprise you with maybe I won't surprise you, but I think I'll surprise you, because it's got to be a package deal.
Okay.
All right.
So we bring him back Zim with Parcells? Please tell me no.
No. I want Jerry Glanville with Mouse Davis.
Okay.
Now, for those people that don't know Mouse Davis, he's the author of the Run and Shoot.
I was hoping you were going to say I want Kevin Gilbride with Buddy Ryan so we can watch sideline fights every week.
The second guy on the list.
Buddy. Again, we didn't talk about the show this week, but you wouldn't know it.
Plus, you can see the kind of coach I like. I mean, Glanville as a head coach was really good, but he needed coordinators around him. And when he had Mouse Davis in the USFL, and then when Mouse Davis went to Houston, back when the Oilers went to it, Dan Pastorini and all that, Warren Moon, they had this all spread out offense, and it just was so innovative. I would love to have those 2 just to see.
I do like that. I had trouble with this one because you didn't want to pick the ultimate legends, because I could have gone with, well, give me Don Shula. I could have said, give me Bill Walsh. And I think both of those would have been fun, but would it have been? But then I said, well, you got to come up with something, and you're still going with a legend. I just think it might be laughable, but we're all in love with this defense this year. We're not making 85 Bears comparisons, but what if we had the head coach? Can you see Ditka ever on a Viking sideline?
I had Ditka in my top 5, but the guy I had at number 4 was Don Coryell because of the offense that we have and his, again, creativity. But if I'm going to do him, then it's got to be Mike Mertz right with him, right? Because
Mike
Mertz, because he is another offensive savant for his time.
You didn't want Dick Vermeil, so every win we could cry a little bit?
Oh, God. And I didn't want Andy Reid because we both know that Andy Reid.
We didn't get Patrick Mahomes with him,
right? Or prime Donovan McNabb,
right?
And so we don't. I mean, Sam's not that guy, and so I think Andy Reid would be a middling.
The other one I picked because it's a perfect fit for a number of reasons. Because the Vikings are usually good, obviously never championship great. Come on over, Marv Levy, because you've been there and done that already.
Yeah, and he had some pretty darn good teams over time. That's very true. I'm surprised you didn't say the McDonald kid from Miami. He
would be the most fun press conference, and I would like to see what he can do with a quarterback that can stay on the field. And I don't mean that as a shot at Tua. It's just a fact. Yep. I think it would be interesting. If we were still in the Mike Zimmer era, and don't get me wrong, I'm glad we're not, and also watching that Cowboys defense get destroyed just warms my heart. But if we were still in the Mike Zimmer era and not looking to go extreme, I would have brought up Bill Parcells.
Yeah, no, Bill Parcells was that guy, and the thing is, I put him and Belichick in a bucket. That's the reason I didn't pick him out, because
paying your bills.
I wouldn't want Belichick as the head coach.
Right, I was going to say, notice neither one of us brought him up, and
he rode Tom Brady. Like, he made sure everything was good, but Brady took care. Brady was your offensive coordinator,
right? Well, and ask Bruce Arians how that went, because people forget Bruce Arians won a Super Bowl because you forget he did because Brady did.
The clown that keeps going back to New England, Josh, what's his name, who goes
McDaniels?
Goes and wrecks other teams and then comes back.
How about the guy that's in Tampa now? Because Baker Mayfield's reclamation, Todd Bowles deserves some credit.
He does, and it's nice. So that's when we get Sam Darnold back. What's the first thing we said? Well, maybe he'll have a Baker season,
right?
And so, yeah, you have to give Todd Bowles some credit.
Hopefully, we've got a Baker dozen wins or more coming up. So you wanted to save baseball for last. Yes. You left us a 2-minute drill. Rocco's out. Who's in?
AJ Hinch.
P.S. I cheated. Oh, speaking of cheating, AJ Hinch.
Number 2, Dusty.
Alex Cora, so we can still cheat?
No, I want AJ Hinch and then Dusty. So we got the cheater and the guy who fixed the cheater.
All right, so you ruined my joke, because I was going to say my first 2 choices were AJ Hinch and Alex Cora so we could master cheating, but you got her done, and I was mostly kidding. But when I said I cheated because we're supposed to pick current managers to take over a Minnesota spot, well, this guy just got back in it like weeks ago, and he's taking over the Cincinnati Reds. I want Tito, Terry Francona. I wanted him to manage in Minnesota anytime it was possible.
I wrote Stephen Voigt down too, but
Stephen Voigt,
you know what he got?
Your vote.
No, he got Francona's team.
True.
And so, yes, I think So this is the fun part. In history, Brian, who's your guys?
Mine was easy because I only picked one. There's lots that I could have listed, I'll be honest, but
4.
My wife is going to laugh at this, although there's less than 0% chance she's listening, but we both love the movie A League of Their Own. And no, I'm not saying Jimmy Dugan, Tom Hanks should run the Twins, but that would be fun. But one of our favorite quotes from that, it involves the bus driver, and Tom Hanks yells, "Who's Lou?" Well, it's Lou. It's Lou Piniella for me. I always wanted him managing my favorite teams.
Oh, wow. I was that way.
Or it would have been Ozzie. Because Ozzie Guillen seemed to kind of man crush over the Twins, but also be ticked off that they were beating them. So I'd want one of those two. But this is purely for my entertainment, not for the Twins to necessarily have success.
So the first one I wrote down was Sparky. I thought Sparky Anderson would be great here. And so when I said Sparky, I need his alter ego, Jim Leland. Right? In the Metrodome, Jim Leland, no smoking, except for you, Jim. You go right ahead.
Jim Leland or Jack McKeon.
And then I wrote Casey Stengel because you got to write Casey Stengel, right?
You don't want Leo?
Then I was thinking, the Twins are kind of a quiet bunch. Their manager is kind of a quiet bunch. They don't say much. How about Tommy Lasorda?
That would have been interesting.
That would be fun with this. He would take all the heat. His team could do whatever. He'd be out there doing stuff that the press would watch and follow. and his team could figure it out on their own.
You know what we should have done is we should have taken Joe Madden, because didn't the guy win the World Series with the Cubs? So doesn't that mean he's capable of just about anything?
Yeah, that's very true. But how about that guy for a quick rise and a quick fall?
Absolutely. Well, with the ownership sale still pending, who could we have gotten for about $5? That's who we need to get.
Who could we get for an owner?
Exactly
We'll
right.
have that sometime.
Ownership, yeah, that'll be a question, because the Timberwolves, who knows? The Twins, who knows?
And the Vikes have one of the best.
Are very well owned. The Wild, he loves to spend money too. So half of them are financially secure. Half of them we're hoping get financially helped. But we love all four, and we love more than that, because Minnesota Lynx, don't get me wrong, the Vikings-Detroit game Sunday is huge. I'll take a victory there.
Cheryl.
But I really, really, really want the Lynx to get another ring, get another WNBA title, because people are watching now. I was watching before. The Lynx deserve all the credit in the world for the previous titles. Because of Caitlin Clark, people care now. Go get this one.
Yeah, and could we beat the 4 New York broadcasters on the radio and on TV that are like New York fans?
Whatever motivates you, get it done. Cheryl Reeve and the Minnesota Lynx. Dave Hoops always motivates us. I'm Brian Prudhomme. He's Dave Cook. We're the Northland Sports Page. We'll be right back. Back here on the Northland Sports Page, having fun. That's some nights by fun. For us, it's some mornings, as in Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. to noon, the Northland Sports Page. We continue on. Our guest lineup today, again, includes Dave Hoops in just a couple of minutes, PA at 11:05, Vince Glenn at 11:25, and then Duluth East Girls Soccer Assistant Coach Cass Wellhouse. She'll close the show. They're trying to find out their seating right now for state soccer, so we'll break that a little bit later on in the show. But no breaking news, Dave Cook here. I'm just going to say, once again, we've got the best sponsors around. You're going to talk about each one.
100%, Brian. We're going to start with the AUG, the OG, Arola Architecture Studio, ABS Auto Solutions, Stewart, Spike Sports and Trophies, Comfort Systems of Duluth, Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing, Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai, Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance, Assisted Living Locators. You can reach them at www.assistedlivinglocators.org/Duluth. Kraus Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer. You know, this week kind of felt like the switch, right? We went from kind of a summery fall to, hey, guess what? You live in Duluth.
Yeah, wait till tomorrow when it's 70 again.
Yeah, and then wait till Wednesday when it's 40.
Right.
Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Ferguson, Bath and Kitchen, and the Blackwoods Group, including their locations in Proctor and in Two Harbors, Tavern on the Hill and London Road. You know, we have guests today, and Dana and I were talking about what we should do. I think maybe we just go to Tavern.
That never sounds like a bad idea. Also, a good idea is going to Mount Royal Bottle Shop's website, mountroyalbottleshop.org. Use the online code RADIO. Now, mind you, you can go in the shop and mention this code as well. But again, the convenience of the online shopping, very difficult to beat. So go to mountroyalbottleshop.org and use the online code RADIO, and you get 10% off all of your Hoops products, 10% off Hoops products, courtesy of Mount Royal Bottle Shop, all day on Saturday, thanks to us at the Northland Sports Page, and of course our sponsors working together, Hoops Brewing and Mount Royal Bottle Shop. So if you love Hoops products, and Lord knows we do, take advantage today. And if you don't know which Hoops products to go with, who better to ask than Mr. Dave Hoops, who's with us now.
Go to the source.
Good morning. Happy Saturday, my friend. How are you?
Good. Good morning. Really good beginning of the show. That was a good discussion about the coaches. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was interesting. I have Steve Potosha to thank for it, because he was raving about Dan Campbell, but then lamenting that he's in our division. And I said, well, I'm really not a fan of Dan Campbell. When he plays this Madden-style football, I tend to root against it. But then I took a step back and went, wait a minute. I root against it because it is in our division. I wonder if he wasn't, if I wouldn't mind. But then I thought about, okay, let's wipe the slate clean. We have coaching vacancies galore. Who are we going with? You said you enjoyed it. You must have had some thoughts as well.
I have a few thoughts. The first thought, before I put out my coaches, that discussion about Russ against, Fields. Thank you. Yeah, I kind of enjoy the old school Tomlin move. It's not, you can't lose your job to injury anymore like Brady and Bledsoe, but it's coach being old school, and I'm so not surprised that he's putting Russ out there just to, that's just his style, right? Whether he's going to perform or not, who knows? But I'm interested to see how he looks. I know how big a fans people are about Fields, and did you see what Fields did? He went on with this humble, like, I didn't play good enough to secure the job. I mean, just class move out of him.
Don't you think that this is a one-game audition for Russ, though? Like, if he goes out there and lays an egg, don't they go back to Fields and then just say, hey, Russ, thanks for no thanks?
Well, probably, but we'll see. As far as the coaches go, my right off the bat, I went hockey first. Barry Trotz is my guy. I think that
nice.
He was. Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned him, but he was just so solid. He was like the anti-shark. He was the shark killer. I think he might still run that team, and that team is pretty nice. LaRussa is a guy I'd look at for the Twins.
I was surprised Dave didn't go that direction.
I had him on the list, but he didn't beat Sparky.
No, I get it. You guys nailed it, no doubt. But I liked Phil, of course, but you were right that he wouldn't fit. Don Nelson would fit.
That's a good
one as well. I thought about that because I started thinking about, who's winning now, and I went to Golden State, and I went, I don't want Steve Kerr. I'm not even sure he and Ant mixed very well at the Olympics. But then I said, well, wait a minute. What about Golden State of old? That was Don Nelson country, too.
Yep, that would have been good.
Oh, it was great. Run TMC. And then you guys will love this, Bill Cowher. And I always had this fantasy that he would come back to coaching and coach the Vikes, maybe 10 years ago when, we were in the flux. But that's who came to mind for me.
I think that's interesting because if you think of that era, the Vikes were good under Denny Green, but could there have been more opposite coaching philosophies than Bill Cowher with, winning with defense and Denny saying best offensive player available, essentially?
Yeah. Can you imagine that draft? That would have been an interesting draft.
Right. All the defensive players that we passed on for offensive player du jour under Cowher, we get.
Yeah.
So, Dave, this week is a big one. The Vikes and the Lions, obviously going to be a huge contest. Are we perhaps overstating that? Because all in all, it's going to be game 6 for the Vikings. But I look at this one, and I was going to save this for Steve Potosha tomorrow on Time for Two More. But I look at this as when a pitcher has a no-hitter in a 0-0 game and then loses the no-hitter by giving up a home run. Not only have you lost the no-hitter, but you've lost the shutout. You've potentially lost the game because you've lost the lead. The Vikings, if they lose, and I don't think they're going to, and that scares me, but if they lose, not only are they not undefeated anymore, they're not on top of the division anymore either by tiebreak.
You're 100% right. And I'm afraid and have a lot of respect for Detroit. They're very, very good. I know Dave picked them to win. He usually does last couple of years. But I picked the Vikings to have 11 wins this year. A win tomorrow would put them halfway there. And I just think that they are going to win. It's going to be a tight game, maybe 31-28. I hope that one of Dan Campbell's famous play calls will give us the impetus we need, like he goes for it on 4th and 6 for no reason or something. But I think I can't wait for this game. I mean, I'm sure you guys are the same. And let's not go sky is falling if we don't prevail. But I'm not going to, obviously. But I'm 100% confident our team will take home the W. How about that?
Yeah, I think that's a good call, and I don't like to simplify games this much, but this is one of those where I think if it's in Detroit, I'm taking Detroit, and because it's in Minneapolis, I'm taking Minnesota. It's too simple to say, well, the home team gets the slightest of advantages. That might be the only thing this comes down to because both teams are banged up in key spots. Obviously, the Aiden Hutchinson injury is the grossest thing I've ever seen.
Well, I think the thing about Hutchinson and them getting him this week, they haven't figured out how to play without him.
Right.
And so I think that does give the Vikes a huge edge. But tell me about Carlton Davis III. If he's not playing and without Hutch, now all of a sudden your pressure, did you know he has 47% pressure rate? That's stupid. But without Hutch, and then if the cornerback on that side, your number one cornerback is also down, well, Darnold might feast.
Right, and then you don't mind so much if Aaron Jones is either not playing or iffy because you've got your number one wide receiver hoping to have a field day. But you're right with the Hutchinson pressure because I didn't know the percentages, but what I did know listening to the Mothership earlier this week is the number of quarterback pressures for Hutchinson is equal to the rest of his team. That's insane.
His pressure rate is 16. No, you're right. It is total pressures. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Total pressures of 47.
And the team was equal to 47 without him.
Third in that list? Our guy Grenard. 29. Like his numbers are so much. I mean, it's like Babe Ruth back in the day with home runs, and the next guy is Tris Speaker with 6.
So I want to get Dave Hoop's take on this first because Dave Cooks will ooze bias with the Gopher love.
What?
But we talk about Grenard, we talk about Van Ginkel for good reason. But this Viking defense that has been terrific is going to be without Blake Cashman tomorrow. That's a big deal. Dave Hoops, your thoughts?
It's a huge deal. Like one of the other keys, I think, obviously the Detroit running game is really, really epic. But you guys know that the Vikings are at the top as far as running yards against. I think they're second, maybe like 67 yards a game. So that has to be, job one. And I have full confidence in Flores. He has his thought about it and figure, especially with Cash without Cashman. But you mentioned it too, Brian. JJ owns the Detroit. He owns them. He's got like 1,100 yards or something in his first 8 games against them. So let's look at, so just do what we do. Sam throws less than 1 interception, win the turnover battle. And, there is the other side of this coin. Everybody's talking about Hutchinson. Yeah, you're going to miss him. You can't replace him. But they might just step up and they might overperform with their fallen teammate down. So it could be really interesting, I think.
Dave, you make a really good point about Jefferson. The flip side of that is my favorite non-Viking or NFC North player also owns the Vikings, and that's Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yes, that's true.
I think it's going to be a big deal, though, because Dave said if you can stop the Detroit running game and you make Jared Goff throw all day, I'll say Jared Goff is underrated still. I think he gets unfairly criticized. He's very good. But I think if you take that run game away, it's a different game. Now, the Vikings statistically have been very good against the run when you look at yards allowed. But I'm curious how much of that is because we've gotten big leads on everybody. So you can't accumulate rushing yards when you're not running. You're throwing 40, 50 times against us because you're down 2-3 touchdowns. The other thing that I'm concerned with is the biggest Viking weakness to me, if there is one on defense, is being pushed around a little bit in the middle. I don't think they're going to face a stronger running back the way he runs than David Montgomery. Gibbs is more the scat back, although that's probably not fully accurate either. But Montgomery's physical, Dave.
Yeah, he really is. And I have a lot of respect for both of those running backs. And Gibbs they're not using him as much as they should in the past. But like Dave mentioned, St. Amon, I'm going to mutilize
St. Brown. I got you. Go ahead.
Yep. Anyway, but I just think that in general, and even their tight end game has been quiet too. So they have so many weapons. But our defense, I believe, is going to win this game, and win the turnover battle, stop the running game a little, just enough. And Sam can manage the game, and KOC's got his hand. It'll be fine.
Well, that's the most fun thing to me about this season so far is there are games that you say, we may need to win this on defense. And in the last handful of years, when you said that about the Vikings, you'd say, yeah, we're going to have to win this on defense. Boy, that's too bad.
49-10.
Where now you're excited that your defense has an opportunity to make an impact because they continually have. Speaking of making an impact, nothing gets more impactful than Dave Cook's great questions. You've got some today.
I have been trying to put them together as the week's gone on, and I'm sorry, Dave, this week hasn't been fantastic. So I've got 3. One of them I was been wanting to ask for a while, but Brian's going to say, well, I don't do that, so I don't know. But I think he actually should have an answer. And so I told you Dana got a new car and a new old car. And one of the things she talked about was all the different stuff that it can do versus the old one that she had. So, guys, what's the most important feature on a car?
Obviously 4-wheel drive if you live here, or all-wheel drive. But I like the little lights in the mirrors, the blind spot lights, which are kind of a new thing in my world. They're really useful, and they have saved me a time or two. And that's a simple one, but let's just go with my original answer, all-wheel drive.
All right, so now you get the passenger perspective.
Yes, I do.
Of the most important feature in a
cool
car,
question.
which will be absolutely nothing to do with operating the vehicle because I don't worry about that. But this will be Duluth, Minnesota's answer to this question because it is, bar none, the heated seats for me. None of the vehicles that my family's ever owned has had them. So I have gotten a great deal of joy riding in friends' vehicles. Now, Dave, you and I do a lot with John Carlson during hockey season. I've never been shy about when John Carlson had that giant truck. I hated it because I had to channel my Mary Lou Retton just to get in and out of the vehicle. Now he doesn't. He has a regular 4-door car.
Regular old car.
Right. And it has probably the nicest heated seats I've ever been in. So when you're coming out of a rink or coming out of 20 below, and mind you, we didn't really have a winter last year, but you're going to warm my tuchus a little bit. Sign me right up.
So
I finally got to work the word tuchus into a Northland Sports page.
What did you end up doing with the grappling hook you carried around with you to get into John's truck?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We'll drag it out for Halloween. Guess who I'm going to be this year?
So all the driving that I do for work, the most important thing for me now is the hands-free phone.
Oh, there you go.
Because I'm on the phone all the time. And back in the day, you had to put your cell phone right up to your ear because you wanted it on speaker and you couldn't hear. And now you could just kind of stop.
Well, now you have to obey the law, too.
All right, so we are going to – do you want to go sports or non-sports, Dave?
Non-sports.
All right. So last night, Dana and I went out and we walked around the grocery store trying to figure out what we want. And since I'm gluten-free pizza is a little hard to find. But we went up to Super One last night at the mall, and they had like a whole rack of gluten-free pizzas, including ones we never could get. So we got a DiGiorno last night, gluten-free, which I haven't had in years. So it was awesome. But I wanted to know, guys, what's the best frozen pizza for you guys?
That's a great question.
It's an easy one too. I have to give Haggis and Sammy's some love, and I'm always stocked up on the Sammy's frozen. They're the best deal around. But I cheat a little bit. My favorite is VIP, and they left Duluth, and which I'm still bummed about. So every time I have to go over the bridge, I stop in there, grab a few, freeze them, and that's my favorite frozen pizza. So I'm sort of cheating there, but it's legit, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, you did a good job giving local businesses some love, including Sammy's, so I can skip over that or at least glance by it, because Sammy's, my best friend in my entire life, lives in Reno, Nevada, and he still gets Sammy's frozen pizza shipped to him out in Reno, so you know what kind of impact that can make. And both of you guys know how little that I eat when I'm working games, and granted, this isn't frozen when I'm eating it, but the one exception I make, and Dave Cook, you saw it a couple weeks ago doing a game at East, Sammy's brings me my own Bianco pizza, and it's hard to beat, and I scarf it in the press box while working football. Yep. So if you can get me to eat while announcing a game, you know you're doing something different. But otherwise, if you're going grocery store and taking it home, I do like the DiGiorno. They make a spinach and mushroom that has an Alfredo sauce to it, so I can eat it, that I enjoy quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good brands. Like Frascetta's a good brand. Dana likes Jack's. I never was a Jack's guy, but she likes it. And then there's the Mott's something pizza that she also likes. So there's a lot to choose from.
Matza.
Yeah, that's the one. Dana likes that one too. But I mean, for the gluten-free guy, gluten-free DiGiorno's like second to none.
Right.
All right. So let's go back to sports.
All right. The grand finale. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So the Wild have a lot of, and they have their best players, and they have, their best of this and their best of that. I want to know, guys, who's the most important player on the Wild?
Besides Kirill, I mean,
I
was going to say, I got to take 97 off the list, but I don't know that he is the most important. I don't know
if he's the most important, Dave.
I like to think Faber is going to grow into the role of being that guy, and he's going to oversee the entire offense from up at the point, and give him a year or two, and he'll be the MVP of this team. I hope.
I'm afraid, and this is going to come up in buy or sell, but I'm afraid their most important player's hurt again, because I think it's Eriksson Ek, because I think it's the balance between being a decent face-off guy, having a physical presence, being that gnat in front of the net, but having the ability to make a finesse play as well. I think he's a little Michael Kadire-ish, which might be why I like him, where he's very good at a lot of things, but not really excellent at anything. But you lose him, and you lose that very good at too many things.
So I'm going to go off the rails a little bit here, and I'm going to tell you the most important player is the center on the first line, whoever that might be, but in this case, it's Rossi, right? Because you got the superstar and you got his buddy. So what they need is a center who can do, can be an assist guy, but can be the backup scoring option. And what they can't do is have some center that they're trudging up the line. I mean, Hartman just can't be that guy, right? And Eriksson Ek's in the perfect spot. So it's the first line center. And so right now, in my mind, the most important player on that team is Marco Rossi.
I think that's pretty well said. Let's be honest. For the Wild, though, it's probably goalie du jour because they're trying to figure out their future and transactionally their future based on how things are going in the Nets. But how things are going at the brewery, that's what we want to know, Dave, to close out this Saturday, because I started the segment with Mount Royal Bottle Shop today and every Saturday. MountRoyalBottleShop.org. Use the online code RADIO and get 10% off your Hoops products from the folks at Mount Royal, courtesy of the Northland Sports page. Tell us what your best products available are, both in and out of the brewery right now.
I will, and I also want to give them a shout-out. They're awesome, as we all know, but we just transitioned. They're going to be selling 16-ounce cans now, which we just kind of debuted recently, and they've been popular. So go on to Mount Royal and get your 10%. As far as what's going on, obviously it's just a sports bonanza. It was so wonderful last night. The place was just full of Gophers fans, hoping to win. And, of course, UMD fans who are super excited. And I usually give my tickets away to fans or to patrons, and so there was a really good feeling, and even with that loss, 7-5 doesn't feel so bad when the way this game started.
I was going to say, it's 2024, and 1984 blushed with that 7-5 score last night.
Yeah, 100%. So anyway, it's just there's so much great sports on right now, as we all know, and the Lynx tomorrow will be fun. Tonight I think the Yankees win, and then tomorrow we'll have the Dodgers game, and then we'll have the Lynx game, which every game has been a mini classic. And then, of course, we've got Rink Rat, and we've got all these fruit beers. Try the apple beer. Soon we'll have cranberry and apple and cherry coming. And then Daisy's Best is on tap, the 26th version of this beer. You must try it.
Yeah, in honor of her birthday. Happy birthday to her. And the fruit beers, they are second to none. Last Sunday, Steve Patosha and I were there during the Vikes bye week. I had what I like to call the fruit trifecta because I started with apple, I moved on to raspberry, and then I had blueberry before I left. You guys got it done in the fruit beer department. All your beers are good. All your sports takes are good. We enjoyed them again this Saturday. Dave Hoops, let's do it again in a week.
Oh, thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of the day and the rest of the show. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Go Vikes. Go Lynx. And it's a cloudy, rainy day, but Mr. Sunshine was Dave Hoops. We'll be right back. Buy or sell is next. Stick around.
Most tax pros leave a message.
It's Jane. I'm moving on to a TurboTax expert who beat your price. Adam Devine, tell him how I feel.
Hey, tax pro, she's been thinking twice. Best believe TurboTax will beat your price. This is a tax break.
Switch to a TurboTax Live expert and we'll beat what you paid your pro last tax season. Make the switch at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice. TurboTax full service only. Sign up by 12/20/2024 and file by 4/1/2025. Full details at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice.
We love a goodbye here on the Northland Sports page. We don't say goodbye until noon, so we got about an hour and change to go. We've been talking about all the things you should buy from our great sponsors. Time for us to play buy or sell. Here's how the game works. I'm going to give a statement for each of the four major sports leagues, NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL. If Dave agrees, he's going to say buy. He's going to tell me why. If he disagrees, he's going to say sell, and he's going to tell me why. Dave has two responsibilities. One of them is to determine the order in which we play. He always is working on that one.
Yes.
And then the second one is piping hot takes. Once he determines what he's talking about, he does a great job there.
Let's start with wow, they're all going on, Brian. Let's start with the National Basketball Association.
All right, so the NBA last weekend, the Timberwolves and Knicks squared off in a preseason game. Let me reemphasize, it was a preseason game. But tempers got a little heated. Most obvious, I guess, would be Dante DiVincenzo chirping the Knicks bench a little bit. With that situation, with that dust-up, buy or sell that you love him a little bit more?
Well, I think that I'll buy that. I'll buy that now. So, I might be ahead of the curve in buying this because I don't know how it's going to wear, right? I mean, he's one of those guys that you talk about AJ all the time. If this is a winning team, and they should be, a guy like DiVincenzo is going to be great. If they end up tripping or they get a couple injuries, I don't want that chippiness then to turn inwards. And that's the sort of stuff that scares me about guys like that.
Right. I'm going to tentatively, I'm going to try to speak English for once, but I'm going to tentatively buy it because part of me thought, is this more embarrassing that we're this concerned with chirping the bench in a preseason game? And I know you just left the organization and what have you. And then there was part of me that realizes even though preseason games don't matter, he chirped a lot and we lost the game. And I went, oh, that's very Minnesota.
He's also a dagger guy. That's
exactly. And I've been very forthright about how much I love Dante DiVincenzo with this trade, even more than I love Julius Randle in the transaction. So I'm going to stick to my guns and buy it. And I'm going to talk about what you've talked about with Pat Bev. You bring him up as often as I bring up AJ Brzezinski. It's somebody who gives your team an edge. You may not like him. You may not love him. When he's against you, you probably hate him. But it gives you an edge that you need. And I think this just proved it a little bit, whether that was intent because he left the organization or whether that was intent because he feels it's his role, it got done. So I'm going to tentatively buy that I like the idea and I love him a little bit more.
All right, so let's go to the National Hockey League.
All right, the National Hockey League, one of my favorite leagues because they're so positive in the sense that when you lose, as long as you get to overtime, you get something for it. So that being said, the Wild play tonight, and they're essentially a 500 hockey team. They've won twice, they've lost twice. But none of their losses have been in regulation, so they've accumulated points in every game. So based on that, buy or sell, you're impressed with the positive start of the Minnesota Wild?
That's a good question. I'm going to sell. I'm glad, but I'm not been super impressed. It's like they play well, and then they yank the emergency brake on it and don't do anything for a couple periods. And I don't know. I've been impressed with Gus. How about that? I've been impressed with Gus. I think he's been the reason they're not 0-4. And so I'll let me say it that way. The Wild as a whole, Gus, yeah.
I was going to say, I'm going to tentatively sell this one because this is the supposed soft part of their schedule. And I'm not going to say that I thought they'd be 4-0 or 3-1 or whatever. I'm not sure what I thought their record was going to be. But they're not finishing games particularly well. And I guess I can't be too encouraged because we all said if this team's going to be better than what experts thought, the reason is going to be because they're going to be healthier than they were a year ago. Well, have we seen the early goings so far?
Right.
Jared Spurgeon might be time to be done. Eric Sinek still battling an injury. The litany of issues health-wise with players that are key to their success is too long for me already 4 games in.
Well, and you know about Kwame Leonard, he
Kawhi?
Yeah. He he's the original time management, right? Game management as far as his body. And that might end up being Jared Spurgeon. You might get him 3 times
the
every
problem
10
is,
games.
And you can't help this, your stature is your stature. His body's never been a big one, and we wondered how long can a body like that withstand the physical effects of this game? We're starting to know the answer.
Yeah, and he's he is older, but if he's that important as the season goes on, I think you're going to have to do load management as the season goes on for sure.
All right, 2 down, 2 to go.
Yep, let's go with the National Football League. We'll go with the playoffs last.
All right, this one might be a great question for PA, who joins us in about 4 minutes. But if the Vikings beat the Lions tomorrow, buy or sell, it's their most impressive victory of the season.
Sell, because Hutchinson's hurt. Like if Hutch was there and they beat him, it's like, wow. They beat him with the ammunition, every piece that the Lions had, they had available. Well, they don't have their biggest one. I think San Francisco at the time, because we didn't know anything about the Vikings. In fact, we were like, oh, yeah, big deal. They won their first game. When they beat San Francisco, I think that changed the direction of their season.
I like what you said, but I'm going to tentatively buy that if they win tomorrow, it's their most impressive one to this point. Because week 2 was when they beat San Francisco, and I know San Francisco had a world-beating roster, and maybe they still do, and they were coming off a Super Bowl loss and all those good things. But they didn't have McCaffrey. If you want to play, they didn't have Hutchinson. Not having McCaffrey's kind of one of the same. And I still think week 2 at home, you don't know what either team is all about. I think if they beat the Lions this far into the season with a team that was hyped to be the best in the division, you go, oh, maybe we're really onto something. You do have the caveat of the best defensive player arguably in the league is not playing. But these are 2 teams that know each other well. I don't think you can say that necessarily about the Niners. Certainly can't say it about the Texans. You don't care if you say it about the Giants. The win at Lambeau was very impressive and always is, but somebody's going to say, well, Jordan Love probably shouldn't have been out there.
Well, the one thing the Vikings have this week is 2 weeks to practice for.
Right. And that's what I think might be the most impressive because your momentum was going for you. You didn't lose it necessarily, but you had to step away from it and recharge again. Now, some people say, well, coming off a bye because of health should be a good thing. But can they keep the train rolling against a team that just rolled Dallas last week? We can talk about how valuable that is or isn't.
Undo baseball
I
quick.
just think it is going to be that impressive. Yeah, real quick with baseball, we've seen rumors, courtesy of Twins Daily for the most part, that for the Twins to make some sort of impact next season, they're going to have to part with somebody that's been impactful. And the names listed have all been pitchers, Bailey Ober, Joe Ryan, or Duran as trade bait. Buy or sell that the concept of trading any of those would be crazy.
I'll sell that. I think it's all about what you get back. The only guy that I wouldn't trade on that roster as far as pitchers is Pablo. I wouldn't trade him, and I probably wouldn't trade Jax. But for sure, Lopez stays. Everybody else is gettable if you give us the right stuff.
So I will barely sell that it's crazy, and Emmanuel Clase in Cleveland is my reason why. Because I want to say that trading Duran would be nuts, even though he struggled this season, because the Twins just have never had really anybody like him, a guy that can throw 100 plus, and dominate a game in the closer spot. Now, they've been blessed with closers before, but not like that. But then you look at Emmanuel Clase in Cleveland, and he was the best reliever in the game, and all of a sudden this postseason is hit, and his ERA is 10.
Yeah, he's always been a good guy. He's Clase.
So maybe, I like that. Actually, I didn't like it at all because we're pressed for time. But I had to acknowledge it or I look like a bad person. But at the same time, you're not going to be able to sell any higher on Bailey Ober. I'll be heartbroken if they do it, but Bailey Ober put together a hell of a season. Naysayers be damned. If you're going to sell high on him, go for it. Joe Ryan, I don't know what you'd get because the injuries have crept up the last 2 seasons. I think you got to bank on him returning to form and being your number 2. That's the part that the Twins are going to have to buy. So that's buy or sell for this week. But I want to sneak in a special guest real quick because he's got an opportunity for you to buy some tickets to a community event. Dave Cook and I are veterans of playing buy or sell. But when it comes to discussing veterans, we turn to Jay Hagan real quick before we get to Paul Allen. Jay Hagan, good morning.
How are you two?
Not too bad. Thanks for waiting for us. It was an elongated version of buy or sell, but give us your quickest 60 seconds or so on the event coming up.
All right. Well, just sneak preview, I guess, of next year's Five Guys in July. We have a U.S. Army Colonel, Jeffrey Williams, who's coming to speak on November 1st at 5 p.m. for $60 for our 2024 Veterans Memorial Hall Remembrance Dinner. Now, he's an Army Colonel, which is impressive enough, but he also went up to the space station. He is a NASA astronaut, did 4 missions, did over 2,800 laps around the planet. That in itself should be exciting enough to take in. And the gentleman is also originally from Superior, Wisconsin, so I think he fits in our category of a local, although he called Winter, Wisconsin home, which I think is somewhere down near Hayward, if I check my map right. So, but he was sports-wise, he was captain of his basketball team, and he was cross-country, and he went to West Point. He was on the parachute team, so he's got a lot of athletic prowess as well, not to mention the 2,600 laps or 2,800 laps around the planet. So a little sneak preview on the next year's Five Guys in July, and again, Remembrance Dinner be November 1st at 5 p.m. till 9 p.m. A great keynote speaker to hear somebody who's been out of this world for a while.
That's a great event. Tell us the when and where. We've got the Friday night, November the 1st, and you said the times, but where are we going and how much are tickets to get there?
Yes, Veterans Memorial Hall is always at the depot, and the tickets are $60. Call the depot, Veterans Memorial Hall, or the St. Louis County Historical Society. See if I can remember my number right, 218-733-7507, and talk to Shay, and she will line you up with tickets. $60 a pop for dinner and a great keynote speaker.
Absolutely. Great job speaking by you. I know you're on the road this weekend, so I'm going to close with this. Say hi to Rachel and Laverne, who I affectionately now call the Pointer Sisters as you're out in Stevens Point. Have a good weekend.
Oh, man.
By the way, the Inter-Squad series right now, they're up 31-27 at 3/4 time.
There you go. Breaking score updates here on the Northland Sports page. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Jay.
All right. Thanks
Jay.
Bye-bye.
That's Jay Hagan plugging that Veterans Memorial Remembrance Dinner. We remember what it's like to talk about the Vikings being back in action. PA is next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
The Humana Honor Medicare Advantage Plan gives you $1,680 back each year in your Social Security check. Choose coverage that helps you keep more money in your pocket. Learn more at gethumana.com. Humana, a more human way to healthcare. The Part B Give Back benefit pays part or all of your Part B premium, and the amount may change based on the amount you pay for Part B. Limitations and restrictions may apply. Humana is a Medicare Advantage HMO and PPO organization with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in any Humana plan depends on contract renewal.